And we are live. So, welcome to round four of March Thursday Nighter. We're very lucky to have for the fourth week here Dr. Oke commentating on the games. Thank you for joining us.
Hi guys.
Going to start with some announcements quick. So, first of all, what are we playing for tonight? We're going to check out the premier results. We basically got on board one Nathan against John for the victory here because Nathan's 3 out of 3, John's 2.5 out of 3, and they've got a big crowd of players behind them with 2 points. So this, if John must win with black, and Nathan can either draw or win with white in order to secure this month's tournament victory. And let's check out the open section. We've got Connor running away with it. Not too much of a surprise there with his rating advantage, 3-0. And Dennis in second place here with 2.5, 2 wins, by the way, just a half-point by. So I'm sure he will be paired against Connor tonight. And then we've got a nice crowd behind them with Jeremy, Vincent, and Steven, all with 2 points. So huge tournament this month. Thank you to all the players. We really appreciate everyone coming out. And with that, we're going to get into this month's player profile. So we have National Master Nathan Hoover. So he is our tournament director, playing on board 3 out of 3 this month, having an excellent tournament. And he really has been instrumental at the club for the weekly classical tournament for, since the castle's been around pretty much. When I was playing back in 2012, he was super involved. So, we're really indebted to Nathan that he has kept this tournament running, and we really appreciate that. So let's take a look at his rating graph here. You can kind of see it looks kind of like, it's a heart attack here, but really that's just because he's been so consistently 2100 to 2300. So, if you stay super high, you don't get to see the same graph as the rest of us, starting 800, going all the way up, because he's actually been strong since the 90s, and with a peak rating of just incredible 2298. So extremely lofty peak from Nathan. And also wanted to highlight some of his peak wins. So he's got really good record against Sean Nagel. So this year's Minnesota Open winner and 2500 player. Although he was a bit lower rated on the climb when Nathan was getting all these victories. So Nathan probably helped Sean, learn a few lessons on his way to 2500. He also has a great record against Leonard Johnson, which we all know is extremely strong player in our state. And really cool victory against International Master Sandor Kustar, 2500 rated player. And then we also see a couple draws there against the legend Victor Adler. Our Victor Adler was winning all the state championships when I was in elementary school. So that's cool to see. And it kind of goes to show Nathan's been playing forever. And also even goes to show he's got a couple games against 2700s here. So, he actually gets to some national tournaments and some cool events as well. Doesn't always just play the weeknight events. And okay, what's your experience playing against Nathan?
He's a bit of a difficult opponent for me. I think he's got a plus of 1 or 2 games in our lifetime uh, set, and it's strange. There are quite a few draws, but hardly any of the games were boring, right? So, and I'm not the most exciting person chess-wise. So if there was a lot of excitement, that means he brought it to the table. And so he tries to play dynamically, I think, and I'd say more concrete chess than general spacey strategic type play. He seems to do a good amount of work on his openings, and so I never go in thinking I'm going to get an opening advantage. That the game is going to be decided either in the middle game or the end game, unless I blundered in the opening. But yeah, he's a tough customer.
Yeah, I always try to prepare for all the opponents in the club, and Nathan's probably the most difficult to prepare for because he not only plays a lot of different openings, he also plays ultra main lines, and so that's a lot different than a lot of players who maybe play a lot of different things, but they're all kind of sidelines, and so you can come up with 5, 10 lines versus each of their sidelines, and you're kind of set. But you can't do that when he's playing mainline Nimzo, he's playing open Sicilian, he's playing all the mainline
Main lines of
tries.
E4, E5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's playing open Rui with knight takes f2 sacrifice, right? He plays like the most critical stuff and really puts you to the test. Just kind of comes up with a plan for each night, but then kind of knows it really well. So very difficult opponent. And yeah, with that, I think we will get into Nathan's game.
All right.
Let's kick it off.
Okay.
And we also see Nathan on camera here playing against John. So John in the left in the white, Nathan in the purple on the right.
So we've got a Nimzo Indian with E3, and so far a normal type of position, and that normalcy lasted until now. So this is not the most common move here, but then I guess part of the issue is that black is usually captured on C3 at this point.
Yeah, I like to
So
see Hubner. So
yes, yeah. So it seems as if John might have been mixing systems in his head. Yeah. After this,
right.
then of course Nathan took the opportunity to escape with his knight. We should think, well, isn't the knight better? Isn't the bishop supposed to be better than the knight? Why is the knight running away? It turns out that the bishop's position is not that secure now, and there's a lot of tension in the position. Now, I don't know about that move. I don't know whether it would have been better to capture on E4. Sorry, on E4 immediately, just because it seems like there's stuff hanging soon.
Yeah, and you feel kind of bad taking that knight without being prompted earlier, which probably would have been the correct move. But from my perspective, it's kind of as soon as white plays knight f3, it's kind of a green light that it's going to be okay to take it unsolicited. It's not necessarily always the best
Yes,
still, but because you're going to get to play around e4, they're not going to play f3. So you've got a path to some good play, the e4 square. And that's why you can feel comfortable just quickly going into that structure because you're not just going to get kind of rolled with an f3 e4 attack.
exactly. And the fact, okay, it worked out tactically for Nathan here too, because I think John was a bit careless. But at this point, once the knight escapes, the bishop on b4 is going to take a while to get back to safety, to not just safety but also to being useful. Because right now it's shooting into empty space. There's no reason why white's rook, for example, would want to be on e1. So what is exactly is the bishop doing on b4? But yeah, after this, all of a sudden white's going to win a pawn, and not just a pawn with a better position. So that happened sort of fast. And
So do you play any mainline, Nimzo yourself? I imagine you do.
I play, yeah, I've been known to play the Nimzo and the Bogo, so I have some familiarity more on the black side of the board than on the white side of the board. Um, and and yes, it's one of the best things about the Nimzo. Is its richness. There's so many ways you could interpret it, right? Which means that it can be challenging for both players, and there are no, well, unless you go into some crazy theoretical line, there are no forced drawing lines. So you get a rich game, and I can't remember. I remember some strong player years ago saying that if if they set up a match between God and the rest of the world, and God was playing black, and we chose D4, he'd probably try and play the Nimzo himself. Just to give an idea of the pedigree of the opening. So it's very, but part of the problem with complexity is it's complex, and you need to have a very fine feeling for timing. So you don't, even if you don't memorize specific sequences, you need to stay involved in the conversation, the strategic conversation that's going on. And once you don't, it's a sort of position where if you, how should I put it? You don't pay attention to your grammar and punctuation, you will be punished. so which seems to be what happened to John here, at least so far.
Yeah, I'm an every game Nimzo player myself, and it is a bit of a big burden, but I think you can actually kind of get started. Not too bad, because just get prepped to get three core chapters. You need four queen c2, you need four e3 with knight f3, like we see in this game, and then you need four e3 with knight knight ge2, which is a little bit different. And
Yes.
that's pretty much what everyone serious is going to play. Um, and yeah, you might get unlucky and you run into some super booked up for bishop g5 guy or something like that, but it's pretty unlikely. So
Yes. I mean, at the higher levels, let me see. I've played, I think John Bartholomew played the Kasparov system against, the early G3, knight of sitting G3, Delio, and yeah, I think I've faced Bishop G5 a couple of times, but yes, those three core, the lines you mentioned, I think if you're to write a quick starter for the Nimzo, those would be lines that a black player should look at first. Um,
yeah. One last point
so
on the Nimzo that I like is it's the only black opening I know of that, or at least in my repertoire, where white can play some move like rook e1, and like that's their big mistake. You know, it's like
yes,
it's like you can't just play chill and passive like white almost always can and get a playable position if you don't try to push forward and win the game. Black is going to have their chance to push forward and win the game, and that's just how it usually goes. Like they have clear paths forward against passive play, and there's just not
yes.
too many black openings that I think feature that dynamic.
And you're not necessarily running a huge strategic risk right from the get-go as you would in, say, a King's Indian, where from the very beginning you're giving up a space advantage, they have problems with the pieces, and so you have to play super accurately against the most critical systems that white produces. With the Nimzo, you can get into critical positions if you don't play it correctly, but the position is, I think, fundamentally more sound. And so black, there's more there's a greater fault tolerance. That's the term I'm looking for. Yes, has more
Yes.
fault tolerance than King's Indian does. So
Get to make one extra mistake because you got the objective eval on your side, and that's
exactly.
that's how mainline openings work. Like if you play ultra main lines, you get to make one extra mistake. That's your reward for all your hard work at home.
There's a built-in mulligan I borrow from
Yep.
the golf world. Um, so okay, this is what is the idea behind Queen E6?
Okay, so he already won a pawn.
Yeah, so he won a pawn, and after knight G5, it seems like he's trying to win another one. Actually, he is likely winning another one.
So it seems like queen's just misplaced.
Yes, and he just misplaced it. I'm wondering if so. It's a difficult question to answer. How do you prosecute this as black? Because you're a pawn now, and you can't just agree to exchange off pieces without some sort of compensation. Otherwise, you'll just be ground down in the endgame. But I don't know. This Queen E6. Oh, and then he drops another pawn. So maybe his position is more critical than I can tell right now. Maybe that's why he had to play Queen E6 and then Queen F6. I thought maybe here he could So if he captures, let's see what's happening here. Yeah, this is not. So here, here. Here, maybe? This isn't seeming to make too much sense. No, this is bad. This seems like that's not too good.
Desperados.
Yeah, yeah. It seems as if white comes out on top there. So maybe that's why Queen F6 had to be played, but then that gives up the pawn in a cuter way. So now he's 2 pawns up and has, as compensation for the material advantage, he has the bishop pair. So Nathan seems to be cruising in this one.
Yep. Oh, there's a third pawn.
Yeah. And Nathan's doing a good job of reducing the opponent's ability to wage effective warfare, hovering off as many pieces as he can. And this is an important moment. The opponent is trying to create counterplay. That's his only chance. It's down too much material. He has to counterattack somehow. And it's important to be mindful of their threats, but also try and keep as active as you can be, rather than go crouch in a corner. Because if you crouch in a corner, then your extra material won't be felt at all. By arithmetic, that seems to be the 4th pawn. And maybe there's another one dropping on F4 soon. Did he resign here, or is he still?
I don't look at the time. I don't think he's going to resign when Nate's got 5 minutes on the clock.
Oh, okay. I suppose. Yeah.
We see them on camera playing still too, so
Okay.
I'll get a
So
little spoiler if they shake hands or something.
okay, thanks. All right, so let's go to board 2 and Daniel Stanky versus UV. And so
So both these players
UV and
having
his
excellent
trust blood.
tournaments, especially Daniel.
Yeah.
UV always strong and expected to be doing pretty well like he is, but Daniel is a little bit lower rated, so really awesome tournament for him this month. I'm sure he's going to gain a ton of rating.
Okay, so Black is going to institute an interesting plan here. Interesting and annoying. Well, annoying from my point of view since I'm usually on the white side of this position. So, um, with the exchange on d4, white, and the fact that white had already played f4, the e4 square is now weaker. And so black intends to maneuver the knight through there to there and there, and then he can plop one of these knights into here. Of course, to get there, the bishop, there's going to be a little bit of a dance. The bishop on d6 has to get out of the way for the knight. But that's sort of what Daniel's setting up for here.
So
And so,
maybe you could just discuss really quickly if black play bishop takes knight, that knight's just amazing, right? It's like super
yes.
annoying, and you want to chop it, but you kind of can't once they play f4 because they'll play f takes and kind of get a grip from that perspective. So what would white kind of
Yeah.
do if black did just kind of chop on d5 and allow f takes?
So here with the bishop
Yeah.
and here, and now black's position is um even if you don't look at the tactics, black's position is just worse. So we have a French-like pawn structure with the bishop on b7, and also importantly, at the moment, the pawn's on b6, which means that one of the ways that black would often get counterplay isn't available, being queen b6. So there's no realistic way for black to get any pressure on d4. And so you'd have to look at putting pressure on f6, on e5, sorry. So say he retreats this way. And already maybe white plays something like this, hoping to induce that. And then queen h6 possibly, or even either queen h6 or maybe queen h3 is another possibility, or even queen g4. But basically, any attempt by black now to try and remove the e5 pawn could result in his king getting more open. And then conveniently, white hasn't castled yet. I'm not saying he should, but he should at least consider queenside casting, so he has both rooks ready to storm the king side. So yeah, this would just be like I don't know, a hockey match where the puck only stays on one side of the rink, and that'll definitely be on black side of the rink. So no,
Yeah.
this
So
yeah.
unfortunately, I think usually you just have to tolerate that knight on e5. It's really annoying, but there's not a lot you can do. You can try to move the other knight and play f6 in some circumstances, but that's also pretty risky and doesn't work out that often. So a lot of times you just have to deal with it, and that's actually goes against one of the principles. I try to always kick out a centralized knight if I possibly can. Like my plan, if I the only reason I don't try to do it here is because I know I can't effectively.
Yes.
If I'm playing on my own in any type of unique position, and they've got a knight like that, my number one priority is to kick that knight out because it's just going to cause problems for me.
And the good thing for black here is that in this specific position, black has the time for this maneuver. So basically, black is going to play around the knight. You could enjoy your spot on e5, but you're not going to be doing anything useful to me. So enjoy yourself, basically, is what black is saying. Now, I'm not sure if rook e8 was necessary or desirable, and not really sure why he played it. Let's see if we can make.
I mean, yeah, because you see
Oops,
f7's weak point now with e6 potentially.
yeah.
I mean, we can't quite. Yeah,
So
you can see now he's threatening potentially to play knight takes f7 and queen takes e6. I mean, I'm not sure if that would be winning or not, but it's at least something to think about.
it's something that black has to think about that he didn't have to think about the move before. So okay, so knight f5 happens, probably just in time. Bishop back. Oh, that's why. Okay.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
So remember, I mentioned earlier that a common way of doing this maneuver is to you need to find a move to move the bishop away. And I'll often see the bishop going back to e7 to make room for knight d6. So the rook e8 was to allow the bishop to f8, where hopefully it's not in the way of the other pieces after this happens. And g4 is also a difficult move to avoid playing, even though you know that you're using that tempo to drive the knight where it wants to go anyway. So the knight wants to go to d6 and then keep an eye on e4. And so okay, so the sequence suggests that maybe rook e8 and bishop f8 was a bit of a wasted tempo because he has to come back to he felt the need to come back to e7.
Yeah, I feel like knight f5 to me was a little bit questionable, just because it begs g4 to be played. Maybe I think about knight g6 because I like to play knight f5 and knight g6 in various times, but knight
Mm-hmm.
f5 when I have a clear idea, and I don't even feel like I have a clear idea, and so since I don't have a clear idea, like with say knight h4 or something, right? Um, then I'm just begging for white to have ideas with g4 tempos, and as far as I'm a principal player, right? I don't like ruining my king safety, but I think g4 is fine in a position like this because we also see the center is relatively closed, and
Mm-hmm.
that I
It's
think is
stable.
that is what decides. Or Nubair told me that's what decides. If you can afford these pawn thrusts in front of your king or not. If the center is wide open and you're trying to do that, it's really asking for it. But if the center's
Mm-hmm.
closed and you really have and especially if it's closed in your favor, so you have the central space, uh, then you can kind of
Yes.
make it happen. And that's why we see it happen in like King's Indian defense, right? They get the totally locked center, and then they can justify these g5, g4 thrusts in front of their exposed king because you never hear about black getting mated in King's Indian, right? And even though they're throwing the pawns in front of their king, and that's because the center is totally locked.
Yes. Now let's see if we can um, improve Daniel's move order here. So rather than play rook e8, let's say we go immediately for this maneuver with knight f5. So we have a tempo on the bishop, and we probably don't want knight g3 to happen. So then we withdraw with bishop f2, and then you bring your bishop to e7. And the reason you bring your bishop to e7 is so that if this happens, now you're coming here, and if this happens, well, guess what? Now we can just get our knight into e4 if we so choose. Um, so the timing is kind of important here. You don't have to go immediately, but at least you know you have that possibility to play knight e4. But because of the time spent on rook e8 and then bishop f8, and then having come back with the bishop to e7, it allowed white's bishop h4 to have a bit more strength.
Question for you: what if,
So,
in the end of that line, I was seeing those dark square bishops facing off with each other. Do you think
mhm.
white or black would prefer the trade of dark square bishops, and why?
so in this position, I mean, again, black doesn't have to play knight e4 right away. But assuming this did happen, um, nominally, because white's pawns d4 and f4 on dark squares, we'd want to consider white's dark square bishop the worst bishop. And so from that point of view, you say, well, maybe white does want to exchange off the bishop, but black isn't terribly discouraged by the exchange of bishops either. He has less space. And the person who has less space um, often wants to exchange off pieces. So there's more space for the pieces that are left behind. Right? So I think in this case, it would be like, as a sports commentator used to say in Nigeria, a 1-1 scoreless draw. So it's, I think they both are okay with it. Again, theoretically, white might be more okay because his bishop is supposed to be worse. But if black could keep his bishop, I don't know that if he could keep his bishop and create more activity, like for example, if white went back, then I would imagine black being happier with this position. So looking at it from that standpoint, I guess it probably benefits white more to get that exchange happening. So, like for example, this could happen, and white is being pushed back. And let's see. Let's think of any number of plans here. Maybe he might even be settled enough in the center to do his own wing attack, like a minority attack on the queen side. As an example, just tossing that out there.
So that's, for anyone unfamiliar with that, that'd be going like b5, b4, trying to maybe play like b takes c3, get a weakness on c3, maybe swing your rook over, attack that weakness, get at some of those queenside weaknesses potentially.
Yeah.
So
So, yeah.
that's interesting to me too. That because it makes sense to me. I think it's a good piece for both sides. And so my current way of playing against the London, I just play bishop d6 right away and trade it off like literally in the first 5 moves.
Yes. Which is an annoying system to face, if I may say. I mean, again, usually I'm on the white side of this particular position. So, yes, that early bishop d6 is like no nonsense. We're not dealing with your bishop vis-a-vis nonsense today for too long.
Yeah,
No,
because
it's, yeah.
the alternative way to kind of play is you can chase that bishop around with knight h5 and stuff like that, and a lot of times even successfully take it, and white will try to get other forms of compensation. But
Mhm.
it is one of those rare openings where it's like that bishop is so good for white that black can break opening principles by moving the same knight twice, and it's like one of those exceptions where like usually you're black, you're already a tempo down. If you're doing stuff like playing knight h5 to chase a bishop, You're kind of asking for it, but London's one of the only one of the only openings I know of where that bishop is just so good. It's kind of worth the extra tempos of losing some development.
There's a similar idea where black tries for an early knight h5. I think it's the Queen's Gambit decline exchange variation, one of those sub variations where black will go for a quick knight h5 to exchange off bishops if he can. For a similar reason, it's funny because this pawn structure here is in some ways the reverse of what you get in the Queen's Gambit declined, or a Caro. Actually, it's similar to. Oh, exactly. It's not like the Caro cut because Caro cut wouldn't have the D pawn. Still, well, maybe in the exchange variation of the Caro cut, you get basically. I'm referring to the reverse Carlsbad position. So, you know what I'm referring to there. So if you look at a typical Queen's Gambit declined exchange variation. So we'll stop here, and you notice that you have the 4 against 3 on the king's side for white, and then you have the 4 against 3 on the queen's side with the half-open C file. And that is often referred to as the Carlsbad position because this pawn structure came up a lot when the exchange variation of the Queen's Gambit declined became a bit more popular. I think it was sometime in the 1920s, and there was some tournament that was held in Carlsbad. So then they said, okay, well, this is where everybody started playing this, and so we'll give it that. The naming of chess openings is rather haphazard. There's not necessarily a rhyme or reason to some of the names, at least on the surface. But anyhow, the important thing is, so you see how this pawn structure is here, and let's change to this. Exchange variation of the Caro-Kann. In this case, we have the half-open C file, but it's now half open to black side, unlike the reverse where it's half open to white side. And we have the 4 against 3, and here we have the 4 against 3. And so in this sort of position, one of the plans that black may consider is to do a minority attack the way that white would do a minority attack in the Queen's Gambit declined position. So that's what I was referring to as talking about the Carlsbad position. So if you just look at the pawns and take the pieces off, you can see where there's that pattern there of the Carlsbad reversed for black.
Yeah,
where you have
Carlsbad is definitely a ultra classical position and pawn structure. Everyone kind of needs to know. Even if you aren't super into positional chess, it's just one of those you must have. The funny part is, I don't play against much Carlsbad because I play Nimzo and stuff. So, they can play C takes D5, but they're almost always going to get a bad version. So no one who's like prepped will do it. So then I just never really face it much. But the thing is, they can play C takes D5, and then I have to play it, and I have to know exactly what to do. So it's just like, and yeah, you're going to see it for both colors. It's just one of those that's like, and there's actually people who are specialists like that. They'll just play to get a Carlsbad every time, and they'll take a bad version, and they'll say fine, I'm still just going to outplay you because I know all the strategic concepts of exactly how to execute the minority attack, and we'll see if you know how to sit around and wait properly. So it's just another funny part is, I know it's about the town Carlsbad, but I like to call a good version of Carlsbad a Carl's good, and
Nice.
also imply that there's a guy named Carl somewhere, but really we know it's about
Yes.
the city Carlsbad. But
As long as it's not Carl's Jr. and there's no ketchup dripping on the board, I think should be fine. Um, so no, but it is a position that you can construct. You can usually construct your repertoire so you don't have to deal with it. But I think it's useful to have an idea of different pawn structures and some of the plans that go with it, because you never know when they might pop up, and you just say, "Oh yeah, this looks like something I've seen before." Um, Now, how do I get back to?
yeah, and you might say to yourself too, I don't really want to play these long grindy positions that are just like ultra strategic, but in my opinion, you just got to embrace it at some point and realize that's chess, and like try to just learn it better than your opponent. You're not gonna get him with one cool trick, but you can accumulate plans, and then you can use the plan that someone stronger than you used against you against someone weaker in the future, and it just kind of
Yeah,
grows like that. So no reason to avoid playing for kind of classic positions.
especially if they're good. Now, this position. So how do we get here? So this. Okay. So interesting. So white is playing on the king side, and black is preparing for his minority attack. Or, and okay, playing b5 doesn't necessarily mean you're going for minority attack. It could also mean you're trying to prepare the c4 outpost for the knight, which may not be as fearsome as the knight on e5, but does put its own pressure on the position, and often will induce that exchange. Now, I'm getting a bit afraid for UV's position, just because his king has a lot of teammates around it, but it still feels kind of airy around the king. The good thing for UV is that none of Daniel's pieces are close enough to cause any trouble yet.
Yeah, to me, just at a glance of eval, right? Two bishops is amazing. Not only that, but white has two knights, so that's like the best matchup possible statistically. Um,
Mm-hmm.
between computers, right? But that's it all kind of leaks into actual games, right? It makes the moves harder, easier to find. And now we also white's still got an open king, and we still have queens on, right? So these are
Yes.
all factors that are leading that the bishop pair likes. So I'm envisioning some sort of queen. This is really maybe contrived, but I'm envisioning some queen d6, bishop d8, bishop c7. Get those bishops aligned.
Mm.
That's a slow plan or whatever. But I want that bishop, you know, next to my b7
Facing the
bishop,
right direction.
hitting that king side, and then I can just imagine some serious damage coming through. But even just bishop b7 is already glorious. Look at that open diagonal,
Mm-hmm.
and look at that open king, and
Yeah.
look at those weak light squares around the king. You can just imagine um, stuff happening. But I guess they don't have a
Yes.
knight to uncork the attack, but um, and then we also
No, I would almost be thinking about queen d5 here, just making the knight on f3. Consider no. Oh, did he play bishop f3? Oh no.
that's your
Is there
glorious
something tactical here?
that's your glorious piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like queen d5 idea too because it seems kind of scary, but you're centralizing the queen and it's far from both knights. It's 4 moves away from knight f3 and it's 3 moves away from um,
From the knight on e5,
knight e5. So yeah, when you kind of
and
internalize those knight distances, it just feels like the right square because it's far from both knights.
it's helping to overprotect f7, creating room for the bishop maneuver, so you can play the bishop d8, f6 idea you're mentioning. Well, bishop d8, f6, but maybe play f6 first, so he doesn't get to play f6 himself. So let me.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so
Yes.
White's gonna have to deal with potentially getting mated, right? But then, say he successfully does that, now he gets the reward of playing two knights against two bishops with pawns on both sides of the board and a weak pawn on f5. So
Yeah.
it's just, you know, it's all going in black's favor in my opinion at this point. That d4 protected passer maybe looks optically nice, but and it is supporting nice 95. You are getting good utility. I mean, it's the tables have turned now that he traded one bishop for the knight too. I mean, and now 95 is
Yes.
pretty strong, but so maybe more drawish territory now again. But still, I prefer black here.
Yeah, I think black. Oh, yeah, black is. I don't know. It's tough because right now, because of the position that the bishop is in right now. Okay. I don't know. Yeah, I think black probably has a bit of an edge here. Yeah, I like black's chances here. The pawn on d4 is probably not going anywhere anytime soon, and his rooks are nice and well dressed up, but maybe aren't doing anything yet. That said, it's still not trivial. I'd probably say it's unclear, or maybe close to equal chances
Yeah,
here.
my prediction's a draw, just but
Yeah.
at the same time, I feel like if black was a lot higher rated here, maybe you could have some stuff to work with.
Yes.
But that's not
But
exactly the
I think
case
yeah,
here.
he would have had a lot more to work with if he had left his bishop on b7. I
Yes.
think. Some strong players. I'm not one of them. Not because of the strength part, but just because everyone has their own biases. But I think a lot of strong players almost consider the bishop pair to almost be the equivalent of a half pawn advantage in material terms. So if you think of it that way, maybe it makes you think a bit harder before giving up that two bishop advantage. I'm just handing him a half pawn for nothing.
Yeah. I want to point out one reason why a bishop's better than a knight, even in this position. Uh, it just almost always has the option to take the knight. This this dynamic where the bishop on f6 is hitting the knight on e5 happens constantly, and the knight has nothing better to do than sit on e5, and the bishop can take the knight whenever it pleases. So it can take it when it works tactically for black, and if it doesn't work tactically, they don't take it. So it's not only that knight can control two colors. Sometimes knight has some of its own trumps, and actually a knight that's centralized and anchored like that is worth just as much as a bishop because that knight
Mm-hmm.
is doing its job. But so you wouldn't have to feel bad if you were black playing bishop takes knight here. Positionally, it's justified, but it's not. It's also positionally not justified because you don't have. You can do it when you please. So just wait and see, and then do it at a perfect moment.
Yes. Focus on what you have to do before you focus on what you want to do. I was actually playing around in my head um, with this move. It's not going to happen. These players are too strong for it. But I guess so. It's a stupid tactic because if White tried to relieve pressure with this, then all of a sudden he's dealing with that business. Um, okay, that's not going to happen. But right now, White has to figure out what he's doing with the knight. This is playing Queen b6 also, I guess, puts the question to the knight indirectly. But now the knight probably has the choice to do that unless maybe there's a tactic I'm missing. Maybe there's bishop d4 here.
Mm,
Oh,
perhaps.
maybe there is bishop d4 here.
But okay, wait, knight takes queen though.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's check, right?
Oh, check. Yep. You can't take a queen when you're in check.
Yeah. So, and then take here, and then king wherever or rook wherever, and then capture the knight. And I think your bank account is swollen by a couple extra pawns here.
Nice spot.
So I wonder if that's what's going to happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll get back to this one later.
UV's got 20 minutes.
Yes.
Oh, I did see. Okay, it looks like there was just a. Oh no!
Sorry.
There was just a result on board one, and it was not in Nathan's favor.
What?
It's like that time edge was brutal. He flagged.
Wow.
He flagged in the winning position. So.
Wow. This is not for real, is it?
It's super.
I guess it is.
Super unlucky because Nathan really deserved to win this month, but it looks like John is going to win the tournament instead.
Wait, how many points did John have coming in?
John had. Oh, let's just flip to the results here. John had 2.5, and Nathan had 3.
Mm-hmm.
So John's going to finish with 3.5 points, and Nathan's going to finish with 3.
Did anybody catch up to John?
And nope, there was no one else on 2.5. So John's going to win. So John really lucked out this month, and we honestly
congratulations to John.
Yeah, congratulations, John. But that's a tragedy for Nathan. You know, even in the final position, he's dead winning, and just got pressured down on the clock. I wonder if he was playing a second board. But I don't think he was because I saw him sitting there. So, but we do see how strong Nathan is because really, he was definitely on his way to 4-0 this month, and defeating a lot of really strong players, including Dane last week, and really, completely outplaying John in this game. But John, if you're totally lost, that is the time to pressure the clock. Yeah, we kind of actually lectured Dane last week about pressuring Nathan's clock. But if you're 3 full pawns down, then I guess it is strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But
so
yeah.
I'm not so sure. I mean, in this final position, I'm not so sure. I mean, in this final position, if the clocks were still as they are, I mean, with Nathan had, say, 5 minutes, it seems like it might be a bit of a chore.
Oh, yes.
For
how do you
for white.
Because if you play queen g5, he's got knight f1. If you play queen g4, knight takes queen. If you play queen g3, knight f1. If you play queen b8, king h7, and you don't have a perpetual even.
Yep.
So
yeah, he might actually not only be lost on the clock, but lost on the board.
Wow.
And how did this happen?
Crazy. Well, then that's well deserved by John. Wow. If he actually, yeah, because that's just not a flag. Nathan flagged. Lost position. Maybe, yeah.
This is unbelievable.
This might be one in the final position. We might want to talk with the engine on for a second, just in case. But it looks winning. Yeah, I can't see a defense.
So in this position, remember I was talking about keeping the pieces active and everything, and then we get to this position here where I thought I was looking at bishop d3 here to try and force black to commit to what is going to do with the g pawn and open up the 7th rank instead of taking the pawn on a7. So the idea would be bishop d3 here. The knight is pinned against the mate on h7. And if he doesn't do anything, you are going to play queen takes f5, queen takes f5, bishop takes f5, rook takes f5, and then then you can capture the pawn on a7, and the rook and pawn ending should be easily winning. And so it looked to me like this might be necessary, and then maybe queen b7 here. It just seems this would be a way of taming Black's army.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm of this much material, I'm playing bishop takes knight at my first opportunity as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to massage. I want to massage and keep that dynamic on if I have even one extra pawn still, but 3 extra pawns, like, let's just give me less to think about.
Yes. So this is okay. So I mean, that's one idea. There are other ways to consolidate this position. After rook there, now let's see what else is going on here. So, oh, maybe there's something. So after here, there's some really nasty. There's a lot of nastiness going on here. So rook queen a1 can be a pretty annoying threat to deal with, because the knight's covering f1 and then the rook can come in. So, and then he closes the door. I'm just looking at the anatomy of John's counterattack here, because I mean, we're thinking about it in terms of Nathan tossing the position away, but it's also interesting to see how white goes about countering here. Every move has a threat, so rook e8 starting to come down with
rook e1, king h2, rook h1 be mate, or rook.
Yep.
What rook e1, king f2? He doesn't really have a mate, but maybe he could win the queen.
Exactly, and then queen c3, which is threatening rook e1, winning the queen for free, and then eventually getting a mate. So then he blocks. Nathan feels, and at this point, Nathan has a minute.
What about bishop f1? I mean, I guess you're just begging for rook e1 then, but
yeah. So if bishop f1, then rook e1, and there's no way to protect the bishop.
But what about queen d8?
So then queen d8,
and then queen h4,
and then king h4, queen h4, and maybe he can get a draw here.
Well, maybe or even a win. Look at that rook. The rook's getting involved too.
Yeah, maybe this is actually. Can he afford to go back to h1? Sorry, g8.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get a rook check in soon.
So rook check, king up.
And knight that hangs into the knight.
No, that's not working.
But,
yeah, that's not working. But there's now this.
Yes, take the pawn, and now we can.
And then take the knight.
Yeah, this is, or even can think about continuing to check for a mating net.
Exactly.
Because.
Yeah.
I mean,
so bishop f1 probably is
a minute left. Take the knight.
Yeah.
But
yes.
If you had John's clock, then you want to think about, okay, how can I mate him?
Yes, but yeah, it seems like his only chance was bishop f1, and then as Zagar would say in a position like this, just be ready to bite into the lemon, and deal with what's coming to you. And it turns out that white would probably be winning if black doesn't precisely carry out the attack. And it just seems as if rook e1, which seems automatic, may actually be losing for John. So instead he plays bishop e6, and is probably thinking only about rook e6 here. But even then, I'm not sure.
And now he wants queen d8, queen h4 probably. I mean, but
The difference, though, is that in this
six.
position, black has this,
Okay, and queen takes f4. But
and queen takes f4 allows 92.
yep. Okay. Yep.
So I think he just got flustered because he has like a minute left. He spent like 30 seconds on bishop e6, and
Yeah.
probably wasn't expecting this as a reply.
I mean, allowing knight g3 is too much counterplay. I mean, but
Yeah, yeah. So I think, I mean, just from a practical standpoint, I don't know what the engine thinks is the best move, but I just think you need to just force this knight to start counting its
yeah, and hey,
last moments in life or something. Yeah.
rook in games are draws, but you're up so much material here. You can play queen takes knight, and
Yes. Yeah. If black were to play here, you should happily exchange off everything. And if you can find a kitchen sink to toss into it, exchange that as well. And then this, even though yes, rook and pawn have a reputation for being drawn, this one you should be able to create connected pass pawns on B and C, and after that, Symphony.
you could probably
So in fact,
you can pick up a6 here too, probably, because I mean I would pick it up the other way
yeah.
because he can't trade rooks.
Oh yeah. There's that. I mean, you could try and dirty your position, but dirtying the position doesn't even work because you just play there.
Yeah, and you even have an a3 pawn to cover the. He can't play rook c5 at any moment, so you're about to just play c7, rook d8 if you need
Yeah.
to.
So yeah. So this would be. I wouldn't say trivial. You still have to be careful, but this would be a gargantuan task for black to find any drawing chances in this particular ending. So, wow, that's a bit of a turnaround.
Well, congrats to John, and sorry to Nathan. That's what we get. We get a lot of drama every week at the club, so always something crazy happening. And board one did not disappoint us this week, but
Yeah,
it is nice to see it was with
it's interesting.
tactics and not just a flag. That would be a lot more brutal if it
Yes,
was actually winning position there. But nice, John found swindle chances, and this just shows you why you don't give up in classical chess games. It's never over till it's over, and
yeah. I mean, it's funny because when we left the position, which was actually just before Nate captured the pawn on a7, I think it was when we left the position earlier, and I was thinking, okay, this should be done. It turns out, yeah, it was done, but not with the result I expected. That's just crazy. So,
all right. Well,
all
speaking of
right,
crazy,
let's take a look at, yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of crazy, should we review the results on board three quickly?
Yes.
So we did
Okay,
have
this is,
another crazy game. Speaking of drama, is one of our top
well,
players.
first of all, for me, yes, sorry.
Yeah, I mean Connor, one of the top players in the club, getting upset, or maybe not upset, but by rating at least, yeah, for the moment, by National Master Ethan here. Uh, so let's see how this happened.
So you played Ethan when both of you were younger, right? So my first game against Ethan where I had the black pieces was, I believe, 2020. And he's always played d4 against me, so e4 is a bit of a revelation, but I kind of suspect he played e4 previously.
Yeah, he definitely
Is that
did.
your experience?
Eddie actually just linked me an old tournament uh, where I played in the Minnesota Closed against Ethan in the amateur section, so we under 2000, and
Hmm.
Ethan won the close that year, and I got like fourth or something. Um, and
Oh, nice.
I remember the only thing I remember about him his openings was he plays Wing Gambit. Um,
Okay, so he's
But
definitely playing e4 then.
but maybe I'm misremembering too. I could be totally misremembering, but I do remember. Yeah, we were basically. Well, he was a bit stronger, but we were competitive or whatever. Back in 2012, and then I kind of quit. He kept going, made it all the way to national master, and so that goes to show, don't take a long hiatus
Dedication.
if you want to actually, make things happen in your chess career.
Well, if the goal is to get to the finish line rather than not how fast you get to the finish line, I think the more important thing is if you put in the work and dedication, that good things. There's a better chance of good things happening for you. Maybe put it that way. Um, so no, this is wow. Is Connor a known Petrov guy as well?
Uh, I think he does play the Petrov.
Okay,
Kind of plays a lot of
interesting.
opens.
I wouldn't have pegged him as a Petrov guy, but just from
Yeah,
his style.
I think it's he plays serious stuff against serious opponents, if that makes sense. So I'm not surprised to see
Hmm.
him play the Petrov against Ethan. He probably is worried about the game a little bit, and wants to play something mainline and solid. I'm not totally certain on that,
Okay.
but if you're seeing him, I think it's going to be pretty rare that you'll see Connor play, a dubious sideline against a really strong player. He's going to kind of
Okay.
play those lines until you prove you can beat him,
Hmm.
and then once you've proven that, then you get his main lines.
You get to promote to the next level.
Yep. That's just conjecture, though. So Connor will have to. We got to get Connor back on the channel commentating here soon. He's commentated a handful of times for sure, and he's a big channel contributor.
Okay. No, this is an interesting fight right now. Um, I'm trying to do a basic count to see if the battle's over C3 or E4 or both. But okay. Oh no. So he just had a brain slip here.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if he says, there's a touch move, something.
Ah, okay.
I don't know, but it's pretty shocking.
Oh, that's crazy.
He blundered the bishop on f5. So that's that's just not something you'd ever expect to happen to Connor. So I
Mm-mm.
do not know what happened, but really shocking here. You know, uh,
I mean,
but
I guess I can understand him saying, okay, well, I'll take it on C3. So he has it's a tempo. He has to deal with it because his rook's hanging on A1. But even maybe he just forgot that his bishop was still floating on F5.
or maybe he was seeing rook b1 in his head. Maybe he was
Ah,
I could
yeah.
see calculating some lines where
Okay.
White's already played rook b1. They play okay. I do this, and maybe he said I go knight d7. They play rook b1. Then I take. I could see just trying to explain it. And then
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then if you take it, so let's just throw that on the board for a second. So
Okay.
imagine you
Oops.
played
So sorry.
knight d7 instead of queen
So
takes.
so
Just
um
back up one move.
rook B1 or oh
Instead,
instead of queen takes. Okay.
yeah, play knight d7
Okay.
here, and then rook b1, and now potentially queen takes is working better because it's still a bit questionable because you're given two pieces for the rook. But you know,
Yeah.
after queen takes, rook, knight takes, um, bishop takes bishop, knight takes rook. Um, you can kind of
Oh,
take
this
his
sort of
Yeah, you
business.
can take his choice. I mean, you can take d7. You can
Yeah.
play knight takes b1. You can play bishop takes b1. So
This
it's
would definitely be a fantasy variation.
yeah. I don't know.
Um,
So I don't know what's going on, but
huh.
just trying to play
Hmm.
Sherlock Holmes here on because you usually can diagnose what led to a blunder a little bit.
Yeah, often
Um,
yes, you can do the forensics to figure it out. But this case, it seems like I maybe he just forgot the bishop on f5 was undefended when he
yeah,
went into the
and that
sequence.
that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah,
But
which which then actually brings up the question of whether he's an actual Petrov player.
yes, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know, but at the same time, we know Dane's a Petrov player, and Dane got made it out of the opening in a Petrov recently, and
Oh,
you know, on one of the channel games, I think earlier, I think maybe week
oh
one.
yes. Yeah. He had a yes.
Uh,
That
so
is true.
it's like it's tough. It's got a Josh reputation at the GM level, but it's double edged at our
Yeah,
level.
at our level, it's definitely a fight if both players are interested in a fight.
Okay, oh, we got closed Catalan. Closed Catalan. This is Ronan
Yeah,
plays. Ronan plays it just how I play it, so nice to see.
and it seems like Eddie finally got a chance to play an opening I play. Oh, maybe he did something last week too. I'm trying to remember, but
He's been trying his best. He told me he's like I've been trying to man, my opponents they're playing like B3 and F4 and like how am I supposed to play Oki's openings? Like give me a chance, guys.
so there you go.
But now he's got the white
So
pieces,
here,
so he's like, you know what, Catalan baby. Oki
yep,
approve of this.
yep, and this is an interesting interpretation of it. So one thing I'll mention is that a lot of times White has no qualms giving up that bishop for knight. It just um, helps with his goals better to do that. And usually the bishop's in the way anyway, so if you can get something for it, all the better. And White plays at thematic e4 here. So offered him a pawn that he wisely declined. The most simple refutation would be queen here, and then I believe, well, maybe not there, because the queen has a3 to escape through. So maybe you close things up with c5, but so what was Eddie's plan here? A4 maybe? And argue that you're gaining time? Let's see, what are we missing? It's
Well,
okay, so maybe
but
it's A4.
yeah,
Yeah,
because you want to try to trap the queen, right?
yeah.
So that queen's already looking a little drafty. I mean, queen b6 probably like gotta vacate.
So queen b6, and
So from that perspective, I really want to try to trap the queen in a better way instead of a4.
yeah,
I want
yeah.
to
A4 isn't.
I want to play rook d b1 and then rook b3 maybe, and say you're low on diagonal squares. I
So
mean,
here,
he's got queen
here.
d6, I guess, but
Oh yeah, he's run out of squares,
he's got
right?
d6 though.
But he has d6. Yeah, that's the problem.
D6, but maybe now our queen's hanging.
That's the
Um,
problem. That's why I was wondering if we even have the time to trap the queen here, because it's with the queen. I mean, the queen's not hanging. The knight on e5 is defending it, but um, but once the queen is able to avail itself of an exchange, so maybe Eddie might explain later what his planned refutation was, or maybe there was no refutation and he just wanted to have him waste time trying to extricate his queen.
Yeah, I mean, I'll bluff that myself now and then, and not even really worry about it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if my opponent really wants to take a poison pawn, and I'm gonna get several tempos on their queen, like, all right, let's do it. I'm not, and I don't think anyone should be really worried about. I personally don't think you should be taking poison pawns, or you should be worried about your opponent taking a poison pawn, because there's just so many tactical patterns that trap that queen. Maybe there's none in this position, but it's just true. And once you start doing a lot of puzzles, you'll see how many puzzles trap a queen that decided to play queen takes b2. And then,
Yeah,
so unless it's theory,
I know.
unless you're Andrew Titus and you got ridiculously good calculation that you're confident in, and you're actually looking at all the variations, not just like, I'll get out, you know,
Not just hand waving.
yeah, I can queen b6, queen c7, I'm out of there. Uh, you know, it's just too dangerous.
So somehow Black has given up a pawn. He has the bishop pair, but oh, sorry, I lied. He had the bishop pair. Um, and
So it's still a clean pawn here, right? And that knight's looking pretty nice.
yeah,
Yeah, f7. I mean, I won't be surprised to
yeah,
see
this is
f6. Ooh.
huh?
Okay, yeah, queen trade, I guess, makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, because there's no good way to defend both f7 and b7.
Hmm.
But now it's probably
Okay, Eddie just calculating this is
an
a white pawn
easy.
mid game. But
So I think this came up in a previous game. White in this position both has the pawn up advantage and not a king up advantage, but his king is so much better. Um, and so if you look at the area that they're going to debate, which is the queen side, um, White's king is so much closer that he can afford to give up the pawn, understanding he'll be able to round up whatever is left before the other king can come in. And in this case, Ronan just decided to play it that way, making it less complicated, but he's still going to have a hard time defending the. So okay, and he didn't need to do that,
see,
but it's fine. he
yeah,
can
yeah. I feel like
he can win it.
I liked what he did, but well, first of all, I love the move c5. I think that was a great move by Eddie to really close this out
Mm-hmm.
cleanly.
Yes,
But
yes.
I would have just played king d3, king c4, and taken the c pawn first. And
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm gonna get the a pawn with my king. Like you don't have your bishop. The bishop's already defending the c pawn. I mean, we clearly see he's gonna win the c pawn anyways. But
This
that's
one's
not
over, by the way.
minor nitpick, I guess. But I like the technique too.
Yes.
And you can feel very
So okay. So
confident. If you're pawn up knight against bishop, you're gonna win 9 times out of 10. If you're pawn up with rooks, that's not true.
yes, not so clear. Okay. So I always feel like let's look at Myron Hayden first.
Thomas.
Uh, I have a I have a suspicion that I want to leave Robert Donahue's game for last because that's dessert, right?
Good old Robert. Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder what his mini goal is tonight. We'll see. But
Yes. Yeah, I haven't looked at the game at all. I just want to say, okay, we'll see, because that's probably good. I can't imagine that not being an exciting fight. So we'll quickly see what's going on here between Thomas Hayden and Norman Myron.
yeah, Thomas is a nice player in the club, and I actually went to the club last night and played a 60 plus 30 game against Thomas. So
Mm,
that's my new favorite preference on Wednesday nights, by the way. Kind of open challenge to the premier section. If you guys want to crack at me in an unrated 60 plus 30 training game, just we can arrange one on a Wednesday. But otherwise, I'll just hang out and play, casual night. But if I can find an opponent, I'm going to do that. So,
cool.
and he's a
So,
Catalan main, so he's after your heart. He plays a lot of Catalan.
oh, okay. Yeah, this his interpretation here is interesting though. So, um, I'm not sure A4 is necessary here before Black has committed the central pawn structure or even his queenside pawn structure, only because if it works out for Black, Black might be able to play A5, and now B4 is permanently weak for White. It may not be an issue, but it just seems inflexible to play A4 that early if you don't have a good reason for it.
So yeah, you're pointing out that pawns don't move backwards, and as soon as you see, you really want to be extremely careful with your pawn moves that you're not going to care that much about the squares they're moving past, because as soon as you play A4, you're never going to get to play A3. So you always have to be like, is my opponent going to be able to use B4 for his pieces? Because now we kind of see, I took control over B5. My opponent took control over B4, but unfortunately they also have C6. And so I can't use B5 for my pieces, but they can use B4 for their pieces. So maybe that's
Yes.
not so ideal.
Now, I don't know tactically if knight takes E4 would have been better. If there's a difference here, let's see. Yeah, I suppose. Well, F5 is possible here, isn't it? I mean, if Black really wants to be greedy, F5 appears playable. I'm not sure if it's good yet, but otherwise, the pawn is gone.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Actually, this exact motif happened in my game with Thomas, and he went for a G4 to break that up. Robert said.
Yes, I was just looking to see what happens after G4, but I think.
Oh, that's looking. Yeah, those dark squares are looking not, are looking inviting for black. Not so happy for white. And that
Yeah.
bishop c1 defender is a ways away from contributing. Got to move the knight.
Yeah, this is. I mean, if White has to play something like this, and then this happens, well, I guess that allows this though. So maybe it's not the end of the world, but F2.
See, and I think this is what gets a bit dangerous at club level too. If you see, you see one cool master GM game where they made G4 work and everything worked out perfectly, and you're like, that is how I'm gonna do it. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and you try to make it work. You try to make it work, and it just never works. Never works. Never works. It's like,
In fact, in this position, I don't know why I didn't consider it before. Okay, yeah, because I didn't want the queen coming to G4. I was thinking maybe we could sweeten that variation by playing this first before playing F3, before playing E3, but then I guess you can exchange off with Queen G4. Yeah, so maybe the earlier line was better, just
yeah,
E3.
my hard learning with that was I play Sveshnikov, so Rosslimo black, and there's like a main line of the Rosslimo, like the super main line where black plays like a cool like knight h6, f5, knight f7, right, and
Hmm.
gets a lot of play with knight f7, and it was kind of funny because just I would always in my blitz games online, I'd always be trying to make knight h6 work, and like it was never good. So
Yes.
just the knight belongs being developed to f6. So I've got I'm like trying to copy GMs and just it's terrible. So
It's not easy.
you got to pick lines
I
that
mean, for
pick
one,
concepts that are like not on the edge, so that way you know you've got some breathing room to actually make mistakes. And
yeah, discussing fault tolerance before, the fault tolerance of different openings, and this seems. Oh, all of a sudden, Norman's won a pawn. Whether he can convert is a different discussion because. Okay. Am I missing something? Oh, bishop a3. Okay. I was wondering what happens after bishop takes.
yep,
But then I believe
discovered it.
bishop here, yeah, does a
It's the
trick.
defended by tactics.
Yes. Oh, hence the draw. All right, we'll see. Look for a couple more moves and see.
Okay, so Thomas Thomas had a tactic to win a pawn at the end there to win his pawn back.
Yes. Um.
Yeah, and
Yeah. I love.
he's very tactically sharp. So
Yeah.
he's Grunfeld player. So yeah, that's kind of funny. Yeah, I'm sure that the Catalan will suit him well though. He's that he'll have a nice positional foundation there, but it is kind of funny since he's like tactics guy that he also plays the Catalan, which is kind of like his slow plotting. It has a lot of tactics though too, but so
Yeah.
you
It
got the
does have
you got the bishop g2. You got that bishop on the diagonal, and that can make it happen too. So I guess it
crazy
is
things.
tactical.
Crazy things can happen. This is now these games from the lower section, the like Vince versus Steve.
Yep, 7 boards. So boards 1 through 6 are Premier, including Thomas here, and
Okay.
7 and 8 are going to be the open section.
Okay. So let's quickly.
So we got
Well, not quick. Wow. Ayaka makes another appearance.
got trusty Alakine. Just rank it up right up there with London. And not quite as solid, but always get an interesting game.
This is nuts. So why
I don't
is
know
this
anything about.
working?
I don't know anything about this.
Why is Queen B3 working? It doesn't look like it is. Was Bishop takes F3 possible there? Well, I guess Castle first is fine.
Well, yeah, but why wasn't? Maybe we should back up for a moment. Why wasn't D4 hanging to Bishop takes F3? Oh, because
Yeah, I could.
So let's just say Black plays Bishop
So
takes F3 right here.
Bishop takes F3. Yeah, this just seems like it has to be. It has to be good for.
It's a
It
queen
has two
check.
pawns.
It's a queen
Yeah.
check. That's what makes it like autopilot.
Yes.
Why you really can't have much going on because you're tempoing the queen. Like
And
move your queen or lose it.
so he moves his queen.
And then take the bishop.
And then you can exchange if you want, and then you win a pawn again. On top of all of that, where's the bishop going? So maybe here, and then c6, and all of a sudden, white is 2 pawns down. So it seems as if Vince missed that, or just felt he needed to castle his king.
Well,
But then, if you miss those opportunities, they don't come back that quickly.
yeah, I feel like you got to find your tactics that involve checks and captures. Threats
Mm-hmm.
too. Threats are a bonus, right? And especially as you get towards master level, you need to find all your threats as well, because those will a lot of times be the wins your opponents won't see. And it's not really, and I've blundered many of these myself, but it's not really excusable to blunder anything that's to a direct check or capture, because as you get stronger, players are going to see everything with checks and captures at least. And we also kind of see another example of why the bishop is. We talk why bishops are better than knights. Playing bishop takes f3 is an anti-positional move. I get why he doesn't like it, right? Bishops are better than knights. I can do that when I want, but that's why it's also important though to look at. You can do it whenever you want, and you should look at it every single move and take it seriously every single move, right? Because
Yeah,
it's a critical move. Uh, it's a capture, right? It should at least be on your candidate move list, and then because yeah, I would say yeah, not a huge deal, but unless we're totally missing something, you know, bishop takes f3
yeah. I
and
think
knight takes d4 should. I mean, maybe we're missing d5 in Mirza, but still, then you can probably just take.
so. Let's see. So let's say
Is if
bishop
it's that
here
straightforward, you gotta go for that.
and d5, and I think we might have just
Yeah, yeah. Now we just need the
compounded
queen.
problems.
Hmm.
Right, so then maybe knight here, and maybe knight here. So that way we're attacking the bishop on f4. And so maybe knight here. And this is all kinds of ugly.
Yeah, yeah. This is
That's
just
all kinds of
over. And also on queen b3,
so
it's like you usually really only want to play that if you're gonna try to hit b7 in some way, or you're gonna be pressurizing the a2 to f7 g8 diagonal,
mhm.
because yeah, otherwise
Yeah,
it
but
could be a
just
little offsides. But
and it's one of those things. So at our level, and by our level, I'm speaking below 2400, where the chance of us dropping pieces to elemental tactics is high. Yeah. And one way to try to counter it is, are you sure all your pieces are safe? All your men are safe? And the d4 pawn was safe before its main protector went away, which is what then creates the possibility of the bishop takes f3, and maybe, at least in the opening, don't give too much weight to the bishop versus knight question. When it comes to the minor pieces, look at them all as recurring Mr. Smith, if I may borrow that for the Matrix, right? They're all pieces, and they're just pieces of wood. And the one on f3, one of his jobs at the moment is defending the pawn on d4. If I take it away, the pawn on d4 has no more protectors. And if I do the calculation, and I'll remember what each piece does, and then do the calculation, I see that not only do I win a pawn, and this is important too, if you do want to pay attention to what minor pieces are left over, is that after this, at this moment, white does not have the advantage of the two bishops. Because with that exchange, we gave up our bishop, but we took the bishop right back. So all he's got is gravy now, or whatever you like to put on your mashed potatoes.
Yeah,
So
there's a Bobby Fischer quote. It's not what leaves, it's what remains. So
yes,
it's
exactly. So okay, well, let's see how the game developed. Here and knight a5. So black is winning a pawn anyway. Let's see if he can do it safely and digest it. Oh, that's nice and sharp.
yeah, the queen's already there.
Whoa!
Yeah, the queen's trapped. I mean, almost. It can go b5.
Whoa, Nelly!
No, no. You can play queen b5. It'll play c6.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
the queen's trapped.
I was just pushing it. I didn't notice that. So that's okay. So the rest of the game is Vince showing his technique.
So yeah,
And I'm not sure that I agree with queen b8. I think c6. Well, but then c6 allows sorry, knight a4. But okay, this has to be a winning position if black takes his time anyway. So let's see how this goes.
I kind of have one final point on that queen b3 moment, which I think is kind of the
Mm-hmm.
critical moment of this game. If you
The
want,
critical moment, yeah.
Even coming
Yep.
back to queen d1, I feel like
Oh,
yeah, just
back here?
yeah, this exact position. When you're thinking about this position, you know, if you, I actually we've been doing this calculation course by Oleksenko, and he's got an interesting concept.
Mm,
In each position, if you want to see if it's tactical or not, because you obviously you can't look for tactics in every position. You need to eventually develop a an alarm bell that says there's tactics potentially coming up here. And one really
mm-hmm,
good way to do that is you check all the hanging pieces and you check what he calls semi-protected pieces. And so
mm-hmm,
if we look at that d4 pawn, that's what he would call semi-protected, which means it's attacked once and defended once. And
mm-hmm.
then hanging would be if it's just nothing's defending it. Um, and if you think about it, there's an interesting concept too with these semi-protected pieces because there's actually more tactics you can execute against semi-protected pieces than hanging pieces. You always think loose pieces fall off. We've got these hanging pieces, but a semi-protected piece you can win in three ways. A hanging piece you can only win in one way. You can attack it again,
Mm-hmm.
or you can attack it right. But
Yes.
if a piece is attacked and defended once, like this d4 pawn, it's attacked by the knight,
Mm-hmm.
defended by the queen. We can win it in three ways.
Well, at the moment, it's actually a bit more complicated because technically, it's not um, under defended at the moment, right? So
Yes,
it
you're right.
is effectively because of the knight. But when you take that into consideration, that's why I was going to extend the theory here because
Yes.
I think I get what you're saying. Is that at the moment, there's sort of two pieces defending d4, the knight on f3, and the queen on d1, and there's one piece attacking it, the knight on c6. However, the knight on f3 isn't stable and could be removed, so that effectively it's underdefended.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And so yeah, you also have to consider that's where it gets hard, right? But eventually you do notice all this stuff, right? You do notice that d4 is the tactical point, and But anyways, the three ways you can win a semi-protected piece is you can attack it again, right? Throw another piece on there. You can also deflect the defender, right, by doing something like playing or deflect or remove the defender, right, by either taking the defender or take something and then the knight has to take in a different direction and you kind of decoy it away and then you can take that way.
Or you can use hypnosis to convince the opponent to play queen b3.
Yeah, and then so you kind of going from semi-protected to hanging, so it's even, your alarm bell. if I was in this position, my alarm bells are already going off related to d4, even with my queen on d1, because I realize that's like the last defender for that piece, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, so now my queen is potentially overloaded. It could get deflected in both directions, and so, anyways, I just wanted to make that a point. Is it's a good way you can tell if there's tactics or not, and then how do you tell if my position is great? Well, if my opponent has tons of hanging pieces, has tons of unprotected pieces or semi-protected pieces, right? And I have none, right? All my pieces are overprotected. They're protecting each other. Pawns are protecting things, right? Then you can. It's amazing, because your opponent really can't do anything to you at all, But
Yes.
so, anyways, that's just a random point, but maybe a framework you can
Cool.
kind of think about to avoid
To
moving your
help with your
queen.
calculation,
Yeah.
right? No. Well, let's see. Okay. Quick look at Andrew versus Garen, and then we'll go back to see what Robert um,
Well,
gave us for a feast. Oh, this is something. Yeah.
I'm already impressed by Andrew because it looks like he is taking a page out of Miles' book, playing a little bit of Nimzo Larson, which is definitely, I would say, an improvement because Andrew is a Polish man. He plays a ton of 1v4. So,
Oh, really? So, are you saying he's taking a more civilized approach with his B pawn?
yes. Yes, it's a step in the right direction, for sure.
So, oh, he's got a good position out of it.
Yeah, I was
Ah, he's setting up for. Well, actually, that's a pretty sweet move, right? So he's setting up for bishop takes g6, but it just so happens it's also clearing the b5 square in case he wants to fork the queen and bishop and then claim he has the bishop pair, which also, depending on um, how black goes about defending g6, he also has to consider the fact that if knight b5 happens, then the pawn on g7
yes.
may be hanging, and
Ooh,
that makes it that makes it work now.
making Nimzo Larson look good. That B2 bishop is a beast.
Yeah, the bishop already earned its keep,
Yeah, and Andrew
and
Andrew's improving quickly. Andrew recently beat Eddie, believe that or not.
oh wow,
Yep. So that is quite a win, right?
yes,
Eddie's recently close to his peak rating around 2100. He's down in the lower 2000s now, but that's no joke win for sure. And
hmm,
I'm pretty sure he takes some lessons with Dane. I know at least he was for a while. So
okay.
he's serious about his chess, and I would not be shocked to see Andrew in the premier section. You know, within the next year or two.
I like the way Andrew is playing this, not taking unnecessary risks, not in a hurry, keeping his pieces active, threatening things to keep black on the back foot. And so at this moment, black can't even dream of useful counterplay. Oofta. So bishop f4 is coming up. It wasn't just defending the rook, and that doesn't work, right? Because of queen c4. And so the knight has to.
At least
Oh,
you get a temp on the queen though. Ooh, this is dangerous.
this is interesting. So I'd be hard pressed
Yeah, but now we
to
can let's
avoid.
let's play bishop f4 check.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'd be hard pressed not to just play bishop f4 here.
Yeah, no, come on, that's an autopilot
Okay,
move.
now this is done. Yeah, now this is.
Let him play
No,
rook
this is
takes.
done.
I'm gonna take your queen. You can play rook takes queen. It's all good.
Yes.
Mine's anchored by a pawn.
So this game,
But
what is
you can never
happening
stop
here?
thinking there though. Look, we were both seeing variations with queen takes c2, queen b2 mate, right?
Yes.
It's like you cannot relax until the clocks are stopped, and that's just the more you play, the more you'll realize that both.
Yes.
And actually the more you play, then the more you can take advantage of that because you can realize this is how all the games go. So I'm going to stay focused, right? And especially as we're getting to the end of a long classical game in these cases, right? That's when the blunders happen. People are tired, right?
Yep.
So you can also,
Exactly.
I like to do a little self coaching, like, all right, this is when, you know, if it's a tense position, we're both in time pressure at the end. It's just like, okay, checks, captures, threats, focus. Like, who wants it more right now? Like, because if you kind of just drift
Hmm.
and don't don't put all the effort you possibly can in, it's really easy to blunder after you've been thinking for a long time. And
Or even get outplayed, like what happened in the game between Nathan and John, where Nathan was definitely um, the one in charge, and then all of a sudden, I think it was well, the time pressure contributed to um, missing a couple of things, and then things went downhill. And we've all been there, I think. It's never fun, no matter how many times it happens. Um, well, let's take a look.
oh, the fact we have we saved Robert for
So
last. Okay, we got
yes,
Alvin
so
Khan Gambit.
this is an opening that I believe Nathan has in his repertoire
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
Nathan loves this thing.
Hmm. In fact, many moons ago, uh, Wesley So was giving a simul, and Nate was participating as one of the opponents in the simul. If I remember properly, the game started d4, d5, and when Grandmaster So made his way back, um, he played knight f3. And according to Nate Hoover himself, um, he asked Wesley if he could take that move back and play c4 instead because he wanted to play his favorite opening. And Wesley, being the gentleman he is, played this, to which Nate responded here. And I can't remember the result of the game. I can't remember whether Nate won or drew, but he did not lose against a 2,700 rated grandmaster. But of course, it helps if you can get to choose what opening you play, right?
Yeah, I I actually got to. I have a good Wesley So story too. I'm not sure if it was the same simul, but it was. I played one in 2012 at the castle, and so and I almost got it. I had a draw on the board perpetual, but I didn't execute.
Mm,
I didn't execute the perpetual correctly, and he won. But that was one of my nice things. But also, looking at the game, I played a perk. He played, which also that's kind of funny. Everyone who listens to me on the channel now, I'm like this principled opening guy, but I was a perk main as a kid, and
mm-hmm.
he played Austrian attack, and he was just throwing his pieces forward without calculating until I had a better evaluation, and then he sat there calculating and calculated his way out.
uh,
But so it's not like I do think uh, he goes full simul style, but that's not he's already 2,700 at that point. So Nathan definitely
at that point.
getting a draw against 2,700
Oh
is
yes, no,
insane.
no mean feat.
Yes.
No mean feat for sure. No, this is an opening that I don't care to face, which is why I take the lazy man's approach of playing knight f3 on move 1 or 2. Um, and is definitely the kind of opening I'd expect to be in Robert's repertoire.
Well, it looks like it worked out pretty well, from what I can tell just at a
Yeah.
glance. I mean, he's got extra pieces.
Oh wow. This is yeah. What it almost feels like Black is terribly happy to have given up the pawn here. He just has his positions. His position just seems to be flowing here. Now I'm not sure about that. I wonder if was that the best move? Is G6 possible or good? Okay, we'll see.
Okay, Jason doing a good job getting his king castled.
Yes.
This is getting kind of
But
crazy. I'm surprised. Black didn't run into more issues with his king safety. Yeah.
yeah. No, Black well, the reason Black hasn't is because for the most part he's had a bit of an initiative. White has been forced to dance to his tune, and so doesn't have the time to. Okay, this is
Okay.
C5.
Ah, so that's solving it.
So okay, so it
Now,
wasn't as straightforward as I thought it was going to be. Yeah.
now bishop d4 is beautiful. I mean,
Yes.
this is exactly what you want to do to defuse your opponent's counterplay if they have rooks on open files. Is put a piece blocking them anchored by a pawn, and that that makes those rooks much less valuable. Okay, so now we got Robert on endgame grind, and Robert's an endgame expert, and he's got we got equal pawns, so and a rook endgame. So this would be kind
So
of dryish, would think,
yeah, it seems as if
but I'd be scared against Robert too myself. I mean, he didn't get 2187 peak for no reason. A lot of the ways you win at that higher level is outplaying people in games, or at least converting, at least not allowing them to bail out for a draw when they get a losing position.
it's not clear to me who's playing the endgame better here. It seems as if
It's a race, right? I mean, it's always about
yes,
whose passed pawn gets there faster, not who has more passed pawns.
yes, and so that might be going wrong. Maybe he has to play Rook E6 immediately because you have to find the quickest path for the Rook to help with that pawn. If you go straight counting
Yeah,
um,
Black's one tempo up.
with yeah, that's one tempo ahead. So you can't just push your pawn and hope to win that race. And so you probably and your king, as long as Black is paying attention, White's king is not going to get to the queen side on time. So it would seem like maybe Rook E6 has to be played, so the Rook can come down to E1 to deal with the pawn, and then White can win, hopefully as he pleases, with his 3 pawns on the king side. But this might, well, okay.
Yeah, this seems winning pretty well almost to me. If you do get the rook,
Yeah, in fact, even with that,
if you sack the rook for the pawn, even you're probably at least drawing with those pawns, if not winning.
if you can get a chance to sack the rook for the pawn, and that's
Yeah. So,
the problem is,
why can't you just go rook e7, rook e1? Just make it a priority.
well, yes, it seems as if Jason was convinced that he could that he'd be winning here.
Yeah, now that
And
okay, now when he queens, rook g8's going to be hanging to various checks. So
yeah, this is we'll in fact I think there's a check right away that wins the queen.
yep.
It raises the rook on b1. Part of um the strength of owning the initiative or having an initiative in some cases gets stronger in the end game than even earlier in the game, because this game hangs on the fact that black gets the first check once they both have queens on board, and queen b3, and right away the rook's gone. Now I would probably play rook b1 just because with the two connected pawns it's still losing, but it might be easier if you could combine dealing with those pawns with an attack against the king. It's a style point. It's not really that serious of a thing, and White didn't make it an issue anyway because he ran with his queen. Wow. So yeah, if we go back, I think the critical moment, well, even after the check,
Well,
he had the chance to play rook e7, and I think rook
yeah.
e7
In
would have
general, just
gotten
get
the
that
job.
rook back because you can't lose. Then you turn it into 2 result. So
Yes. Yep. Even if it's simple as just rook e7, um, rook e1, rook b1. Don't even bother with what black's doing, as long as he doesn't obstruct your path to playing rook takes the pawn, and then you go with the three pawns against the rook. But anyway, live and learn. Cool. All right, so I guess
so
we've got everything covered.
yeah, we did go through all the
Congratulations
games.
to John.
Yeah, I wanted to do just some quick closing notes, just highlighting how competitive the tournament is now. So we did between the two sections. I think we had nearly 30 players, so that's getting close to a weekend tournament. Maybe not quite, but pretty big, especially for weeknight tournament. And then we think about all the competitive players we have. So Miles won last month, and we got Connor, who's winning historically the biggest winner, and was getting close to master. Right. We got Nathan that just went 3-0, should have potentially gone 4-0 this month, and so it just shows he's not just playing TD, but also a threat to win every single month. You know,
Mhm.
we've got our teenage genius John Blommer, who wins the tournament without even thinking. So amazing accomplishment by John. Uh, and no, that's just how he plays all his games, though. So we give him a little bit too hard of a time for not using time. But John did an awesome job winning this month. It's not even close to easy to win this tournament. We can see how strong the field was, and yeah, we see his swindle was a true swindle where he did it with amazing piece activity and tactics. Um, yeah, pressuring that clock as well, but pressured it on the board and the clock. And I know, okay, we got new entrant uh, Ethan, who went undefeated, and we could have seen him easily winning this month because two of his draws he had winning eval on the board at the end, so he really outplayed his opponents in those games, and they were lucky to get the
Yeah.
draws. Uh, so yeah, it's just I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but we really can't tell who's going to win each month. So awesome that you guys are all showing up and making us so competitive, and thanks for supporting the broadcast as well. Thank you so much to Dr. OK here for all his commentary all month. We really appreciate it. Appreciate getting a top weekend player commentating on our weeknight games, and yeah. Any closing thoughts from you?
I know it's been an interesting experience. I look forward to helping out in the future. It's yeah, these games are very very competitive. It seems as if they're you can't just say, "Oh yeah, I see the pairings and I know it's going to happen." No,
Yeah.
everyone's fighting, and I think it's a good thing that people don't show too much respect to the higher rated opponents. Uh, just for the point of developing your game, if you're going to roll over just because of 4 digits, you might as well not play. Right?
Yeah, no, that's some selfless advice too, because if this is going to be the high rated player most people play, so he should be telling you guys just to roll over when you play him, but instead he's saying, you got to
Well,
come for
I
me.
should put a caveat. When you're playing against me, feel free to roll over.
Yes, okay.
Play possum all you
All
like.
right.
So,
Well,
uh,
we're not sure what the schedule is like for next month, but we will be back with the broadcast in any case. So we'll see you guys next week and for a new fresh tournament with clean slate. So, all right. Bye.
bye, guys.